Good evening, and welcome back to the Weird and the Wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. And we are carrying on with our usual trip around and following the request of one of the fellows last night. We're going to make this particular one a trip to Spain. So, Dias, welcome, and Insat, and Caleb, welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you guys are having a wonderful evening. Hey there, Heart, how are you? Good to see you back. I hope you are having a decently warm evening. Much thanks for the likes. So as we get started, I will remind everybody that we do the weird, the wonderful, the supernatural, the strange, and odd things that take our fancy. And while we do that, we go around the world and look at what different countries and cultures say about these things. That said, we usually will pick a theme, and we started this particular run with werewolves, and we quickly realized that while you don't get werewolves all over the world, you certainly do get shapeshifters. Much thanks for the likes there. Now, that said, you therefore will have not only werewolves around, but some countries where you don't get werewolves, you'll have an equivalent. So, of course, in Africa, we don't get wolves, and therefore we don't get werewolves. But we do get were-hyenas and were-lions. And, of course, in India, you get were-tigers. So we started wandering around the world doing the werewolves, and once we are done with the werewolves, we started doing shapeshifters all around the world. And we've been doing that for a while. And in our last live, we were requested to do Spain. Now, I don't know a great deal about the original legends of Spain and Portugal, so I had to do a fair bit of research thereon. But we're doing Spain and Portugal together because they are linked for a number of different historical reasons, quite important ones. And it certainly looks like it's going to be interesting in that regard. So we are looking forward to that. That said, I remind you on this channel we have one rule, and the rule is don't be rude. We have people from all over the world, all kinds of different religions, cultures, and all the rest. So you might think certain beliefs are complete rubbish, but for somebody else, they are an important part of their lives. So we don't promote and we don't denigrate. We simply see what people say and try and learn a little bit. That all said, do like, do share, do subscribe, do comment very much so, and do send lots of gifts, because that's what keeps the channel going. And with that, I think it would be a fair statement to say we should get started. And there's user 862 again. Welcome, 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 welcome. I see a couple of familiar names, so that's rather awesome. Now, as we begin, shapeshifters. First of all, do you get any at all in Spain and Portugal? And the answer is, of course, yes. It would appear that shapeshifting is in every single country and culture around the world, which maybe we shouldn't be surprised about, or maybe we should. Nevertheless, they are a fairly various variety. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are just there. And of course, they include a number of different traditions or cultures, if you will, including the Iberian, the Celtic, and medieval, and more. But certain ones seem to stick through, like skinwalkers. Yes, they are. Now, here's the thing. While we will talk about quite a few different kinds of shapeshifter, the kind that we're trying to sort of stick to by and large are the ones that are like werewolves. And what I mean by that, for example, in quite a number of mythologies, Caleb, you will find that the gods can change their shape quite freely. So in Nordic mythology, Loki, of course, is famous for changing his shape all the time. But I don't think they count to our purpose exactly because, well, you expect the gods to be able to do that. What we are more interested in, by and large, are humans that can do it. Or at least mortals, I suppose. Thanks for the like there. So we're more interested in humans that can change, and then secondarily, if you will, other beings that are around this planet or plane of existence, if you will, that are capable of changing. So that's our main aim. Now, skinwalkers, of course, fit the bill perfectly because a skinwalker is, at least originally, a human witch. They do undergo a certain kind of modification and transformation because of what they do to gain their abilities and become far more monstrous. But at least in origin, they are human and therefore fit the bill perfectly. Skinwalkers, yes. Skinwalkers absolutely have to. You cannot become a skinwalker, in fact, if you haven't. But that's not true of all shapeshifters. There are different types and kinds, and there's a number of them that simply do not at all, which is quite important. Some of them are very benevolent. There's an Irish family or clan which are all good, and they don't have to, nor do they ever, which I suppose is quite important. But there are those that do, dependent on how one becomes a weir creature. Now, we also need to keep in mind, and I don't know whether you knew this, Caleb, original stories of shapeshifters say that you're either fully human or fully the animal. It is very rare to encounter one that has what is pretty standard in modern movies now, where they're sort of half and half. For the most part, at least in the original stories, shapeshifters do not do that. They're either a wolf or a man, for example. However, interestingly enough, throughout its storytelling, the weir hyena in Africa has always had three forms, either fully human, fully hyena, or half and half. And there are one or two different ones around the world, but they're actually more rare than you might think. A proper werewolf has only got two forms, in the traditional stories at any rate. So make of that what you will. Is it important? Not sure. It might be. We shall see if we can discover more. Many thanks, by the way, for the following there. I do appreciate greatly. And welcome to Pizza, who has joined us. Are you lucky enough to have pizza? We certainly hope so. Now, the first one which my research threw up for me, which is quite interesting, is not really that, because while it is a creature, and a shapeshifter, and they can appear human, they are not originally human. And that is the Maura Encantada. Now, Maura Encantada simply means enchanted Maura, and it shows up in both Galician and Portuguese folklore. They are a kind of enchanted woman. They are very powerful shapeshifters, and it can appear in many forms, which again is quite different to the normal weir creature, the therianthrope, because normally a therianthrope has one form that they take. So the werewolf only changes into a wolf, whereas this is more of the witch-like creature. Anthony, hello, welcome. Thank you for the likes here, Margreen. So, and Chlesle, thank you for the likes. These things are more of a creature than a person. They're not what we can call a weir. Yes, Anthony, I do indeed remember you have been on a couple of times. Welcome back. So the Maura Encantada, they can appear entirely as a human woman, very, very beautiful one, which is important, given the kind of creature that they are. Melinda, hi. Yes, there we go. I was trying to remember your original name. It's not one that sticks in the brain, I'm afraid, at least not my brain. Guko and Vegeta 2. But I remember you said your name was Anthony, so I remembered that. But welcome nevertheless. So the Maura can appear as a human. They can also appear, and often do, as the snakes, Maura cobra. Bearing in mind that in Portuguese, the word for snake is cobra. So a Maura cobra doesn't necessarily refer to a cobra. It just means a Maura snake. They also appear as goats, dogs, horses, and so on. They have golden or black hair and are often seen singing while combing it. I do find it interesting that so many of the female siren types like to sing and comb their hair. I wonder if there's a reason behind that. Not sure. Thanks for following the live there, Anthony. I do appreciate. Now, Mauras are typically found in what they call a liminal space. Ancient castles, caves, rivers, and wells. And it is said that they guard hidden treasures, which is pretty cool. The spell on them can only be broken by a person who fulfills a certain task. They are also said to have been the ones that built a number of prehistoric megaliths and dolmens. So apparently they're good builders as well, which is pretty cool. Now, they, of course, are not the only shapeshifters around, because we absolutely do have the Hombre Lobo and the Lobisomem, which is the Portuguese and Galician version of the werewolf. Hey, Eben, not too sure what that means. Nevertheless, and of course, the Lobisomem is the Portuguese and the Hombre Lobo is the Spanish. And there are varying ways you can become a werewolf, and we will go into them as well a bit more, because we have discovered that across the cultures thus far, there are 4 ways that you can become a werewolf. Oh, you're referring to me. I know who he is. I wondered what you meant. The hood, yes, it's become a thing. Apparently I have to have my hood on for doing the live. I have various hoods, and it's sort of become the trademark. Not intentionally. When I started doing these lives, it was particularly cold, and so because I do them quite late, I would wear my hood, and it became sort of a running joke. So yes, though I hope I'm not quite as ugly looking as Palpatine was. He was a fairly awful creature. Now, interestingly enough, we found a fifth way that you might become a werewolf, but some links to the original. So the seventh son of a family can be a werewolf, it seems. And of course, if you get bitten, you can become a werewolf. But as with other traditions around, which we found in Europe for reasons that are not entirely clear, transformations happen Friday nights. Maybe it's for the party aspect. And of course, there is also a connection to the full moon, which we know is pretty standard. Now, what's interesting as well, and answers another question that came up, werewolves are generally pale, weak individuals in human form, and their transformation is an advantage because they can become very fast, strong, and powerful, which they would not be as a person. Now, an interesting one, which we are going to have to go into further, is the real-life historical account of a Spanish serial killer, Manuel Blanco Roma Santa, in the 1850s, who, yes, this is a genuine case. He claimed, at least, that he was a werewolf. Now, whether or not he was, I suppose, is the big question. But he absolutely did exist, and he absolutely did some fairly awful things because he was indeed a serial killer. So we have that to go on. As we progress, though, we will also look at the bogeyman which they have there, which is the Coco, or the Cuco. Again, both Spanish and Portuguese, which is a shapeshifter. And you have the Pieira, which is not a werewolf, let's say, because you have to be human to be a werewolf. This is a fairy wolf, so half wolf, half fairy, rather than half human. Remember, weir is Old English for man, so a werewolf is a man wolf. So you have the Pieira, and then of course you have a whole collection of interesting creatures that also can shapeshift, your bruxas, your trasagos, and your caretos. So we will absolutely look at a number of those as well. But just because, and because it's really quite interesting, and I know Ibn's interested, let's look at the real life story of Manuel Blanco Roma Santa, who used to be Manuel Blanco Manuela. He was born in 1809 on the 18th of November, and he passed away on the 14th of December in 1863, so just over 50. He was the first recorded serial killer in Spain, and in 1853 he admitted to 13 that he had done, but, and this is the important part, He claimed it wasn't his fault because he was suffering from a curse that turned him into a wolf. Now, the defense was rejected at the trial, and he was found guilty, but interestingly, Queen Isabella II commuted his death sentence to life in prison to allow doctors to investigate the claim as an example of clinical lycanthropy. Blanco has become part of the Spanish folklore as the werewolf of Alariz and is known as the Tallow Man, a nickname he earned for, and this is fairly gross, rendering the fat out of his victims to make high-quality soap. Nothing like a good bath. He was, I will say, a fairly normal-looking bugger from sketches of him. He was a traveling salesman and a dressmaker of all things. He passed away at the age of 54 in Ceuta, in Spain. He was only convicted for 9 of the acts of murder, but he said he had done 13 at least. He was supposed to be executed via strangulation with a garrote, but it was commuted to life imprisonment. At the end of the day, the police said there were 9 confirmed, 13 confessed, and more than 20 suspected. So, according to the varying accounts, he was a small man, between 4'6" and 4'11" in height, blonde and tender-looking. As an adult, he worked as a dressmaker and was married. He was widowed a year later, but was not suspected of having a hand in his wife's passing. Following the passing of his wife in 1833, he became a traveling salesman, initially in Escos, and then throughout Galicia and Portugal. He was also known to act as a guide for travelers crossing the mountains to Castile, Asturias, and to the Cantabria, which of course gave him more opportunities for trade and possibly other things. In 1844, he was charged with the murder of Vicente Fernandez, the alguacil of León. He was found dead after attempting to collect a debt of 600 reals that Blanco owed to a supplier in Ponferrada for the purchase of merchandise. When he failed to appear, he was judged guilty by default and sentenced in absentia to 10 years imprisonment. Fleeing from the threat of this imprisonment, he lived in hiding for almost a year in an abandoned shelter in Ermida. He appeared later in public with a false passport using the name Antonio Gomez, a native of Nogueira in Portugal, and lived in a small village in Rebordechão in the district of Vita de Barrio for at least a year. Although he helped with the harvest, he also worked as a cook, a choir maker, and a weaver making yarn for the spinning wheel. And for those of you who are wondering, choir is the fiber off the outer husk of a coconut, and it's used for doormats, brushes, mattresses, even a kind of rope, a bit like sisal. He was friendly with women of the village, but the men considered him quite effeminate. Over the years, several women and children who had hired Blanco as a guide began to disappear. These disappearances were not noticed immediately, as Blanco delivered letters to their families advising that they had arrived well at their destinations and were settling in. But people became suspicious when they noticed that he was selling some of his victims' clothing locally. And then rumors began to spread that that really good soap he was making was just a little bit dodgy. And people began to whisper. In 1852, a complaint was finally lodged in the city of Escalona, alleging that Blanco deceived women and children into traveling with him so he could knock them off and remove the fat, which he then sold. He was arrested in September of 1852 in Nombela in the province of Toledo and brought to trial in Alariz. In his defense, he claimed he was afflicted with lycanthropy. Now, an interesting fact, and you may make of it what you will. I know there are a number of modern connections and all, but true lycanthropy, such as it is when you can physically change your shape from a person into an animal. Then you get what we would call spiritual lycanthropy, which is a shamanic thing whereby you take on the spirit of the animal, and though you don't physically change shape, you gain their spirit and powers and mannerism, apparently. Then you get clinical lycanthropy. Now, clinical lycanthropy is a mental disorder where they say or they believe that you think you've become the animal even though you actually haven't, and it's considered a mental disorder. So those are the types. So he claimed he was a lycanthrope, and his death sentence was commuted because they said he had clinical lycanthropy and they wanted to study him. Just so we're clear on what we're talking here. So they didn't believe he was a werewolf. Now, when Blanco was brought to trial, Galicia was in the middle of one of its worst famines of several that had plagued the area throughout the 19th century. The famine led to mass migrations and a noticeable increase in fear and anxiety. And so he became subject of a notorious judgment. The cause number 1778, the Wolfman, volume 36 of the Courts of Alariz, the litigation based on a claim of lycanthropy, which has never been repeated in the history of Spanish law ever, such as it might be. Hey, Nikita. Now, as we progress, Blanco admitted to 13 murders, but in his defense that he said he had been cursed and he committed them only after transforming into a wolf. Now, we know from when we did our werewolf thing, there was the famous German case of Peter Stubbs, and he also claimed that he was able to transform into a wolf. He, of course, was executed, as was his wife and daughter, I think, and his son. So it got a bit rough that side. In his own words, however, the first time I transformed was in the mountains of Cusco. I came across two ferocious-looking wolves. I suddenly fell to the ground and began to feel convulsions. I rolled over 3 times, and a few seconds later I was a wolf. I was out marauding with the other 2 for 5 days until I returned to my own body, the one you see before you here today. Your Honor, the other 2 wolves came with me, who I thought were also wolves changed into human form. They were from Valencia. One was called Antonio, and the other Don Gennaro. They too were cursed. We attacked and ate a number of people because we were hungry. So there is quite a serious admission of werewolfy guilt. Now, the prosecutor, Luciano Bastida Hernández, asked Blanco to demonstrate the transformation for the court, which he replied that the curse only lasted for 13 years, and he was now cured, as that time has expired the previous week. Well, that was convenient. In October of 1852, Arariz doctors presented the court with a report on Blanco, based heavily on phrenology. If you don't know what phrenology is, it is the art of reading your personality due to the lumps on your head. The report accused him of inventing his affliction, while noting that lycanthropy can be determined from a visceral examination and a cranioscopia. The doctors found no cause nor motive for his behavior. His inclination to vice is voluntary, they said, not forced. The subject is not insane, dim-witted, or monomaniacal, nor were these conditions achieved while incarcerated. On the contrary, he instead turns out to be a pervert, an accomplished criminal capable of anything, cool and collected and without goodness, but acts with free will, freedom, and knowledge. Now, the court acquitted Blanco on 4 of the murders he had confessed to after forensic evidence indicated that these victims had actually died in real wolf attacks, though I suppose if he really could turn into wolf, maybe it was him. He was found guilty of the other 9, and the remains of which exhibited signs of butchery. On the 6th of April 1853, he was sentenced to death by garrote, with a 1,000 real compensation to be paid for each victim. The court case had lasted 7 months, and the transcript covered more than 2,000 pages, which were bound in a set of 5 volumes called the Lycanthropia. So if you want to read the whole thing, you can read the Lycanthropia. The case was sent for ratification to the territorial court in A Coruña, which, after considering the case for 7 months, reduced the sentence to life imprisonment. The prosecution appealed against the reduction, and a new hearing was set for the March of 1854, which upheld the original verdict from the court in Alarez. Now, they do give a number of his victims' names. He seemed to like them young, I got to say that, and he liked to take out the ladies. But other than that, the prosecutor gained considerable fame and prestige for his prosecution of Blanco, and was made a Knight of the Royal and Distinguished Order of Charles III of Spain, which is the most distinguished civil award that can be granted, and was appointed to the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, our lad was put in jail, where he was examined for his beliefs. They checked out his brain to see if there really was a reason why he was a serial killer, I suppose. So the influence of the mind, and the doctor that actually studied him in this regard, influenced greatly both Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. So it was fortuitous, I suppose, in a way that the Wolfman trial occurred at the beginning of the golden age of hypnotism and all sorts of things. Now, we do know that Blanco died a few months after arriving at the prison. Locals say it was from illness, but rumor has it he was shot by a guard who wanted to see him transform. And he didn't, and he died. So what happened? We're not sure. But he did, after all, pass away, nevertheless. And he was indeed the Wolfman. Now, of course, this sparked a number of stories and films and more, because everyone loves a suitable werewolf. But one of the most interesting novels that came out of it was written by Patrick Süskind in 1985, the German author of the truly creepy movie. Yes, there is a movie made of the book, so you don't have to read it if you are lazy. Perfume, which is suitably creepy. So yes, there is our first creature such as it is. Now, interestingly enough, we are going to talk now about the intrudo and the caretos. Now, according to the story, it is a celebration, and this isn't necessarily a real thing, because it's a celebration type thing, though people say it harks back to a real situation, but mostly young men back in the day, but now women as well, shapeshift into devils and tricksters. The caretos invade the alleys of rural villages to chase unmarried women, spread mischief, send away evil energies, and most importantly, celebrate the beginning of spring and the hope for a fertile earth and good harvests, which is kind of cool. There's music, especially bagpipes and drums, dancing and all of that, and I dare say a huge amount of drinking, because that's what those kind of festivals are all about. But they say that it might relate back to the Roman Saturnalia, or even older traditions, we're not sure, in which case it may hark back to the concept of Pan and more. It's played out, and you have to wear special masks and what have you as you run around and do those things. But nevertheless, it shows these creatures that they become to run around and cause suitable mayhem. Moving along, however, we have a number of other things, including dry eyes. I do apologize for a moment there. Just give them a rub. Now, the next interesting thing is your bruxas lavadeiras, which are kind of weird because bruxas are witches, of course, and we get plenty of witches and they can shapeshift. But these ones specifically are washerwoman witches. Why? I don't know. They are found along watercourses, rivers, lakes, and such, washing out their clothes and beating them on the rocks. Now, in folk tales, witches run across the villages at night with lights in hand, scaring off people, and they are shapeshifters, and sometimes take the form of geese. Why geese? Not too sure. But nevertheless, they gather in groups like geese, and they run across or fly across sometimes, the countryside, causing mayhem as geese. Well, I can tell you that geese are really annoying birds, and very aggressive, so I don't know. It's a bit of a strange one, but they are shapeshifters, and in the proper form, because they are, after all, people. Moving along, however, we have the Homem do Chapéu de Ferro, which we have to mention briefly, because he is the shapeshifter, but this chappie is in fact the devil. So, kind of doesn't count, simply because, well, he isn't human. So you can't really count him in a way. I mean, he's semi-divine, no matter how you look at it, so does it count? But he does appear in an iron hat, doing his thing. So in that regard, it's all in Portuguese. My Portuguese is a bit dodgy, which makes it a little hard to read for you. But essentially, he is a man in a hat, causing trouble. And specifically, the hat is iron. And he shapeshifts in varying forms in order to trick people and obviously then do devil things to them. Does this matter? I don't know. There's Clinton Pillay, welcome. Haven't seen you in a while. Now, we've seen the enchanted Maura, which are absolutely guardians of treasure. They are kind of water nymphs of a type. So again, not exactly human, but they appear that way. And they can be both in that regard. But they shapeshift, which is what's mostly important. Now, they might have their origins way back in the Indo-European Celtic belief, female deities of water, and just about every Portuguese and Spanish town has a tale of Maura Encantada. And they say that the lore of the Mauros Encantados is used to explain and find prehistoric monuments. And it was used in the 19th century as the main method to locate Lusitanian archaeological sites, such as the Martin Sacramento. So apparently they were believed in and used. Now, it's said that the Mauros built the dolmens, the big stone buildings and ancient monuments, and the Lamia of Basque mythology are that kind of thing, but they sing and use a golden comb in their hair and have treasures which they promise to those who will go with them and fulfill the desires of whoever they're tricking. But if you're clever enough to actually steal their comb, you can make them do as you wish because they want it back. But of course, if they gain the upper hand, as you can imagine, you get et. So, yeah. Now, what does Maura mean? Well, it might refer back to the word mortus in Latin, or morto in Portuguese and Galician, which of course means dead, which implies that in fact these are spirits of the dead. Not too sure. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but there are varying varieties that are set to be out there. Now, because the Maura Encantada is a magical creature and a shapeshifter, she may take the form of a snake, or a dog, or a horse, usually a snake, which may have wings, and she can appear as half a woman, half an animal, if so desired by them. You also get the Maura Mai, the Mother Maura, which is a charming pregnant lady, and the narrative focuses on the search for a midwife to help, and the reward that is given to who is willing to assist her. So maybe when they need something, they will reward you. They have treasure after all. You also have the Maura Velha, the old Maura, who appears in the shape of a very old woman. You have the Maura Lavadeira, which is exactly like the Bruxa Lavadeira. And she is seen washing white clothing and putting it out in the sun. Why? We're not sure. But that's what she's seen doing for some reason. Then you have the Frades. They appear as friars dressed in white. Of course, the key thing is they have lots of gold. They have hidden dolmens that they've got. They like fountains, and they are enchanted. Sometimes they use that to lure men to their doom, possibly to get even more money. Ave. Henny, welcome. Good to see you on. So you've got a whole collection of these strange shape-shifting creatures, and they are absolutely not the only. We are going to talk now about the lobisomem. Now, the lobisomem we find not only in Spain and Portugal, but also in Brazil, because of course there's a big influence of Portuguese culture and Spanish culture in Latin America, which is important. Much thanks for those likes, guys. Do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and all the good stuff. Please do. I would appreciate it greatly. Nevertheless, the lobisomem, the creature is kind of a werewolf, but can appear as a ball of fire or an unusually large pig. In human form, they're perfectly normal people, but might have slightly yellowish pale skin, and slightly pointed ears. We're not sure. Whichever way it goes, we shall see. Now, there are a variety of ways that you can become a lobisomem. First, of course, you can be bit by one. If you are bitten by one, you become one. If you come into contact with a lobisomem's blood, you pick up their disease. Being the seventh son in a family, now we see that in a lot of places, seventh sons or seventh son of a seventh son, whatever. But you can save the afflicted son by making one of his elder brothers his godfather. Why? I don't know. That's a strange addition, but there you go. Being the first male son of a couple with 7 daughters will absolutely guarantee you become a lobisomem, in which case the first transformation takes place on the said son's 13th birthday. Punishment for doing something might cause you to become a lobisomem. So incest, concubinage, or a woman having sexual relations with a priest, all of that will turn you into a Portuguese werewolf. Some say that a lobisomem transformed every day in which the moon is in its full phase, which is common with a lot of European places, of course. Others say it only occurs on a Friday with such condition. Either way, in all versions, it transforms at night, usually attacking travelers and animals on the road. Now, we know that these are similar to the varying other European views. So the werewolf is considered to be pretty much a baddie in this story. Was it? We don't know. Now the next shapeshifter again is a ghost-like monster more than it is a human, and that is Coco, also known as Cuco or Cuca. It's a ghost-like creature which basically it's a kind of bogeyman. You get them all over Spain and Portugal, and these beliefs have also spread in many Hispanophone and Lusophone countries. It's the Iberian version of a bugbear, perhaps, and is also used in common speech to denote irrational or exaggerated fear. The Cuco is a male, and the Cuca is a female. The languages are genitive, so different names. The monster will come to the house of disobedient children at night, most especially to take them away. So it's also used to scare kids into being good. Now, the legend goes as follows. Good coffee is good coffee, no matter what. Cucos or otherwise. Now, the cuco will come and get bad children. This is true in Spain, Portugal, Latin America, all the way around. Now, it's not the way that the Coco looks, but what it does that is scary, because it is a child eater and kidnapper. They may immediately devour the child, leaving no trace, or it may spirit the child away to a place of no return. But it only does this to disobedient children. It's on the lookout for children's misbehavior from the rooftops, and it takes the shape of dark shadows staying watching. It's kind of like the opposite of a guardian angel, and it's sometimes compared with the devil. what exactly it might be. But true to form, there is a nursery rhyme that explains it from the 17th century. Sleep, little child, sleep, or else Coco will come and eat you. That's a good way to get your child to sleep, right there. So, nevertheless, they turn up all over the Lusophone and Spanish-speaking worlds. They are shapeshifters. They can turn into a small owl, the murukututu, or other birds of prey, mostly those that fly or roost on houses at night. Some say it is a man with a bag seen wandering along. So, might be important, might not be important, but nevertheless, shape-shifting can change what it wants in order to get to the naughty children. I suspect it's one of those creatures that is mostly to scare children. Now, of course, one of the great changes of shapes are the bruxas, or the bruxas, which is basically just that, a witch. They are known to be able to do varying things. If it's a male, it's brujo. If it's a female, it's bruja, because the word is genitive, as you can imagine. And witchcraft is essentially all evil in this viewpoint. So take it as it is. That's what they say. And it's something which should be avoided greatly. And the bruxas can do a fair number of different things, including affect people's minds, make love spells and more, depending on where you go. But what's important is they can get around when they want to by changing into varying animals. Now, they do so via magic, which is kind of the point. So it's a voluntary shapeshift as opposed to one that is a curse-related shapeshift. Does that matter? I don't know. They have control over their form once they've changed, which usually, if it was a curse that got you changed, you wouldn't have. So I suspect it might matter a very great deal in that regard. So, yeah. Now, the next shapeshifter we've got, again, is more a monster. It's not a human, but nevertheless, the Ache, it comes mostly from the Basque people. He is known as the young bull. Sometimes also known as Etsai. I'm not too sure why. He is a cave-dwelling spirit who adopts the form of a young red bull. But when he wants to, he can take the shape of a man. At night, more so in stormy weather, he arises from the hollow that is his lair, and he attacks criminals and other malevolent people. He protects people by making them stay home when danger is near. He is a good shapeshifter, therefore, and he is the enforcer in some way of the goddess Mari, punishing people who cheat or who are bad. And he is the young red bull that can, and obviously he is super strong and powerful. living in his caves and hollows. And he's been part of the Basque mythology from way back into the Paleolithic, which is a pretty long time. But nevertheless, he's even become popular in the modern day in games. So if you know of the Guild Wars franchise, he turns up in there. So there you are. I don't know if any of you guys that are listening at the moment, if any of you are Portuguese or Spanish. We do have obviously a great number of Portuguese people in South Africa, so it's quite possible. Have you heard of any of these things? Are they part of what you were told growing up? Do tell us. I'd be very interested in hearing from you. Nevertheless, moving along to the next one, we have the Trasgu. The Trasgu, or Trasno, is a creature that comes mostly from northern Spain, but also is found in northern Portugal. They're similar to a number of other European cryptids, such as gnomes and kobolds. So the origin of this creature is probably Celtic. Now, the Trasgu, or Trasno, is very common. It's basically a gnome of some variety, and it's said to have a red hat. Why a red hat? Well, let's find out. He is a domestic goblin with mischievous and nervous character. A tiny man who limps with his right leg. He has a dark skin, wears red clothes and a pointy red hat. He has a hole in his left hand. He is described at times having horns or a tail or sheep ears or long legs, or wearing a long black and grey cloak. At other times he is small with long thin legs and wearing a tight dark brown dress. We're not sure why they are so specific in this. Nocturnal noises are attributed to him, and small pranks like changing the location of objects or oversalting food. He enters a home at night when the inhabitants are asleep, and if he's in a bad mood, he will break kitchen vessels, frighten cattle, stirs chests of clothes up, and spills water. Now, they don't cause material damage because the inhabitants usually find everything afterwards. On the other hand, when he's treated well, he'll do all kinds of cleaning of the house and sorting things out, which I suppose is pretty good. In Asturias, he is known by a variety of names dependent on the location, be it Cornin, Trasno, Juandos Camillos, the Goretin Colorao, or the Gora Encanada, which basically means the little red hat. Now, if you want to get rid of him, here is how you do it. It is a little bit difficult because if you move to a new house, he follows with. Many houses get abandoned because of this in the stories, and you will find that when they get to the new house, the wife will ask the husband, "Have we forgotten anything?" And the Trasgu that's followed them will answer, "You left the lamp, but I'm carrying it." So getting rid of him, you ask him to do an impossible task, like bringing a bucket of water from the sea, or picking up all the millet from the grain floor, which will fall through the hole in his hand, making it impossible for him to do, or whitening a black sheep, Because he thinks himself capable of doing anything, he will accept the challenge. In his stubbornness, he will try until he becomes exhausted, and when he fails to accomplish the task, his pride is hurt, and he leaves never to return. So there is that. Now, some say he is a small goblin with a black face and green eyes that lives in the forest, at least in Cantabria. His main activity is to mock people and do pranks. So his clothing is made of tree leaves and moss so that he can hide after he's upset people, which seems reasonable, I suppose. He turns up in quite a lot of literature, and interestingly enough, in the Portuguese translation of Harry Potter that was done by Leah Weiler, the trolls are referred to as Trasgo. So he's a kind of goblin-y troll-like thing, if that makes any sense at all. If it doesn't, he's still that. So that is what is. But he is a shapeshifter, and that's all we care about for now. Moving along, the next one is the Pieira. Now, the Pieira are interesting because they are werewolves, but instead of being half wolf, half man, in the way a werewolf is, they are half wolf, half fairy. So they are shapeshifters with a deep connection to nature and to wolves, acting as benevolent guardians of forests and their inhabitants, especially, of course, wolves and werewolves. Legends say that they can be the seventh daughter of a family or a woman that answers the call of a wolf, and they are known for calming savage beasts and healing injuries. They are the guardians of wolves. They are the companions of wolf packs, and they protect them from harm. But they are also known to be able to calm disturbed or angry werewolves, which sounds like a good idea. They can transform between humans and wolf forms. The human form is very beautiful with long hair and very piercing eyes. Their origins are human. Interestingly, a girl can become a Pieira when summoned by a wolf's howl, or if she is the seventh daughter of the family. So, in a sense, they are originally human, that have become sort of fairy, and they are all about nature. So they are nature spirits, without a doubt, just wolf nature spirits. They can command and communicate with wolves and wolf packs, and even dire wolves and werewolves. They also are said to be able to heal injuries and illnesses, both in themselves and others. They can calm the savage werewolf, so they are not a threat to nearby settlements, and they have the power to do divination, which is pretty cool. Right there. We like the idea of that. And I'm sure quite a lot of young ladies like the idea that they might very possibly be able to transform into a wolf when they want to, because unlike most of the others, these ones can change when they like. It is not a curse. So they're a kind of forest guardian. Now, they only turn up, as far as I have seen, in European mythology, which means that you don't find them outside of Europe, if that matters. She is always a young woman. You don't get male Pieiras, if that matters. So we have that. They're a kind of nymph that was once a human. And she may have with her werewolves for protection or ghost dogs, which sounds pretty damn cool as well. But once in a while, she might seduce men and take them off for having her way with them before feeding them to wolves. So might not be a good thing after all, just saying. But there you go, Piira. Now, the next interesting one that we have is La Lechuza. It's from Mexican and Tejano folklore, but obviously very much influenced by the Portuguese, because we saw there was that other Portuguese creature, the Artaxa. Now, this is a specific witch that transforms into a large owl at night to lure and prey on unsuspecting victims, especially drunk people, and lures people by mimicking a baby's cry. There are varying ways to deal with this creature, of course. So they are owl shapeshifters. They may have a very human face, even in owl form. They are predatory. They might like children in particular as well. They use babies' cries or whistles to draw victims out, and once lured out, they swoop down and carry them off, where they may eat their victims. So they're very big owls, and apparently quite strong owls. So legends say that they might originally have been started off by a woman who was murdered and returned as a vengeful spirit. But others say that it was a kind of witch. So yeah, how do you protect yourself? Tie 7 knots in a rope and hang it in front of the door, which will stop them from coming in. Salt mixed with chili powder thrown in its face will repel it. But I dare say if you threw salt and chili powder in anyone's face, it wouldn't cause them to be terribly pleased with you. And if you can recite the Magnificat, which is a Christian prayer, it will also wind them away. I'm trying to remember which was the Magnificat. Let's check it out. I haven't done the Magnificat for a long time. It was a good 20 years ago. Hello.
Hello.
How are you, Lulu?
I'm good.
I'm glad to hear it.
How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Amazing.
I'm glad to see that you are doing well.
Thank you.
So, what do you know about shapeshifters in Portuguese and Spanish mythology?
It's basically, yeah. So there's like one at the airport, and it like
Shapeshifts.
yeah, and it like runs away on a plane.
Whoa!
Isn't it? I like shapeshifting.
And then like it does like a backflip down the stairs.
No. Listen.
Thank you for the likes there, guys.
Welcome. Basically, I like shape-shifting in Greek mythology. I like turning into a triangle.
Okay.
Right, have a good day, stranger.
I will do my level best, and you, and you.
Bye, Baldy.
And hello to you too there. I can't see what your... It's a dot. Hello to Dot. But welcome, welcome. I hope you and Hart are doing well. And are having a very good evening. Do you know anything about Portuguese or Spanish shapeshifters? But nevertheless, the Magnificat is from the Gospel of Luke, which is Mary's song of praise. My soul magnifies the Lord, etc., 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 which Mary says when she visits her cousin Elizabeth and finds her to be pregnant. Expression of joy and gratitude in God's favor. The Magnificat is part of the evening prayers. Now I remember it. It was something that back when I was a monk we would say every evening, especially because the order I belonged to was Marian-based. So, there you go. Magnificat. La Lechuza is quite popular now in urban places, which is quite interesting. So, they tell it more in towns these days than they do in rural areas. Now, it's an interesting thing because that seems to happen quite a lot. It's more in urban areas that you get those kind of stories in South Africa than in the rural places. Does this matter? We don't know. But there you are. It's interesting. It's something that does happen. Now, the next interesting set of things we need to mention is the fact that you have a number of islands around the world that are specifically Spanish or Portuguese. And they have their own versions. And normally it would be too small of a place for us to have much to say about. So I've lumped them together under Spain and Portugal because, after all, they are Spanish or Portuguese, if that matters or helps. You have the Tipicena, which comes from the Canary Islands, from the Guanches, the indigenous inhabitants of the Canary Islands, which is a kind of shape-shifting demon. It's, interestingly enough, one of the black dogs that turn up in cultures all around the world, which I find very interesting because they describe pretty much the same in all the different cultures. A big wild dog with black fur and fiery red eyes. It might be a hellhound of some variety. It lives in deep mountain caves and emerges at night to attack people and livestock. And certain places are known to contain them. So they're a standard item belief in places that originally, despite being described as hellhounds, were not Christian. And all over the world you get them. So there you go, that's a very interesting thing. Then in the Balearic Islands, found in the folklore of Ibiza. They are small, mischievous beings with a notable shape-shifting talent. They can turn into anything they like, but they prefer to turn into a goat. And they are tricksters, little gnome-like tricksters that will add too much salt to food, wake babies in the night, and they like to swim and play around in the sea foam during storms, such as it may or may not matter. We also then see that we have what is called a follet, which is also from Ibiza. but it's a magical power, not a thing. And for you to have the fole means you have the ability, essentially, to teleport. But it is connected to shape-shifting. But it's how these mystic beings can jump from place to place. And of course, these are talents that are shared with El Hombre Prez, which is a young man who disappeared into a river and was later captured at the Bay of Cadiz, that had turned into a were crocodile. Spain has were crocodiles. Know this, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, you have the Lamia, which is a kind of witch. And her kind of shape-shifting is different, because instead of changing her shape, she changes her place with other things that look at her. So if you make eye contact with her, she can switch your place with her place. And so teleport. How this connects to shape-shifting per se, I'm not entirely certain, but they say that it does. Now, the next one, which is sort of sweet and sort of freaky at the same time, is the Boto Encantado, which is the Weir river dolphin. So the Boto is a pink river dolphin, and you basically have something which, when he wants to, he can turn into a handsome man, usually at night, but his blowhole is still on his head, so he wears a hat to hide it. In this form, the Encantado is said to go to parties to seduce women, which often results in pregnancy, and then he returns to the river before dawn, leaving the woman to have his child. Now, by day he is a pink river dolphin, by night he is a handsome, well-dressed young man. The only thing he can't change is the fact that he has a blowhole, as a dolphin does. And he leaves behind a number of children in his wake. They say that they are mischievous, but they can be good. So sometimes they will lead the fishermen to the best stops, and sometimes they'll lure people to dangerous areas or even abduct them. Why is this important? Well, we don't know. But they are shapeshifters, insofar as it matters. And with that, my friends, and though it's a little early, surprisingly enough, we have got through all of the shapeshifters of Portuguese and Spanish mythology. So what do you guys think of that? Not the most exciting or dangerous, certainly not the creepiest. I think that by and large the creepiest ones either come from the Navajo or the Wendigo, or, thank you for those likes, by the way. It's MJ. Welcome, welcome. So either the Skinwalker or the Wendigo. So Canadian or Navajo mythology, though arguably the African Buddha, which is of course the weir hyena, they are quite creepy in that regard. So from what we've seen so far, the world is filled with shapeshifters. I'm not too sure where we can go next for shapeshifters. I will see what I can find for a couple of good ones. I don't think we've done Russia shape-shifting yet. We might need to look into that. So we have varied possibles. Hey, Divine. So we have that to work on, nevertheless. Different shapeshifters around the world. We also need to start looking at a couple of the other cryptids that are out there. We haven't touched at all onto the legends of the fairy, which of course turn up in the tales of the Mabinogion, of the Tainbo Culain, and stuff from Britain. You have varying other fairies around the world, and of course the Navajo have the Nanahe, which remarkably are described exactly like the Irish fairy. And South America has a couple of their deities which are described exactly like the Irish fairy, and you start to wonder, who are these beings that, and all the cultures are said to be able to travel all over the place as they please, first of all, which is quite a big deal, and are amazingly beautiful and wise and skilled, though occasionally can be fairly scary when they want to be, and they live sort of outside of the where. So we have that to look into and to look forward to. We do also want to look at a number of other things that popped up that maybe are not massively big enough for a full theme, but might do for a single live. For example, the Klerksdorp iron balls, which were found, which were just really strange. And we do need to talk at some stage, but we'll have to do it in a live, about the concepts of time travel. And is it feasible, possible, likely? We need to talk about that. We do need to talk about the origins of things, where different cultures said that people came from. So there is that. We need to talk about some of the gods and tricksters and other creatures, because there's a few out there that are really quite interesting. I do want to see if I can, I don't know if they will let me, we have a really wonderful shop in town that sells all of the ingredients for Isangom or an Inyanga. Which is really quite cool, and I would like, if they will allow me, to go on down there and do a little bit of a walkthrough and look at some of their stuff, ask a question or two, because I think it would be very, very interesting for us to see that. I would like that, and I think that quite a lot of people would like to see them, because one of the strange things, I suppose, for a lot of people is that this is not an uncommon South African thing, and it's not like some hidden, secretive place. It's just another shop in town that's right there, which is pretty damn cool. It's not like the weird shop. It's a quite normal shop filled with herbal medicines and more, which is pretty cool. So we shall look into those things as and when and how, and see what we can come up with. But with all of that said, regrettably, I have run out of content for you tonight, which means we're actually going to finish a little early, surprisingly enough. So it appears that I am all alone up here tonight. Who knows? We shall see. But with that said, thank you all for joining me. Thank you for making this live what it is and being a part of it. I always enjoy having you guys along. It makes a big difference to me. And I hope that you like the content. And don't forget, if there's ever content you'd like me to research that is weird, wonderful, supernatural, paranormal, I will absolutely do it. I am more than happy to look into things, to do a live that will cover that topic. We've done quite a few different things, but there are so many strange things in the world. I'm sure that we can go quite far in examining more. But that said, we are kind of there with it, so I will thank you. Oh, my live visibility is restricted because it contains unoriginal or reproduced content. Since when? What a load of absolute twallop. I am shocked and astounded. TikTok, you are idiots. I am most unimpressed. I will appeal that and say rude things to them. But until then, I shall bid you all good night, and I will tell you, sleep deep, sleep sweet, but sleep with one eye open, and perhaps keep that holy symbol near at hand, because you never know. There are things out there besides TikTok that goes bump in the night, and they might go bump for you. Good night.